Welcome. This is going to be a follow-up video to how to make nuggets the fast way. This is going to be a deeper dive with a little more insight, and I'm also going to give you a couple of options that you can do if you don't have the same equipment I do. Instead of a recipe, I'm going to leave a link in the description below to my nugget calculator that you can use to calculate your own nuggets based on either the weight or the number of nuggets you want. And you can use either imperial measurements or metric. And no, it doesn't cost anything, no email address, nothing. Leave questions in the comments below. Put the whole grinder assembly into the freezer before you begin the project. So besides a cutting board to cut the chicken up on, you're going to need a nice gram scale. You're going to need something to measure in. A thermometer is going to be really useful to nail this recipe, but you'll get really close by just following the timing. Although the thermometer can take guesswork out of things. You're going to need a knife to cut the chicken up with, and we're going to need some way to grind the chicken and mix it. Instead of a grinder and mixer setup, you can also make nuggets by using a food processor. A food processor can replace the grind and mix step in one. If you don't have a grinder and you don't have a food processor and you're tenacious, you could partially freeze the chicken breast, slice it, mince it as fine as you possibly can, and then mix it from there. And your texture will be close. It's all about how fine you can mince it. Next, we're going to measure out our seasonings. And for our seasonings, I just do simple salt, white pepper, and MSG. The MSG is just a flavor enhancer. If you don't have it, you can leave it out. And then our chicken, cut the chicken up into small dice. I don't know if you noticed, but I got these huge chicken breasts. They're over a pound a piece. If you just cut those giant chicken breasts up into popcorn chicken and bread them, more than likely it'd be very chewy. The grind process fixes that texture. We're gonna season the chicken and then mix that up. Once your chicken is seasoned and mixed up well, you have two choices. You can either allow it to sit in the fridge overnight or go ahead and put it in the freezer and allow it to freeze for around 2 hours. To allow the chicken to get down to around 32 degrees and some of it to be a little bit frozen. If you are going to add skin or fat, make sure it's completely frozen. We're then going to grind the chicken through a small grind plate, ensuring that your grinder is put in the freezer beforehand so it's nice and cold. When grinding your chicken, make sure you don't try to force too much chicken down the hopper at one time. Allow the grinder to do its job and be patient. Now that your chicken is ground, we're going to emulsify it in the mixer using a paddle. This takes approximately 6 to 8 minutes. When I say emulsify our chicken in the mixer, I meant we're going to emulsify the water and the chicken together. I prefer to use crushed ice instead of water during the emulsification process. It does a couple of things. It keeps the mixture cold during the long emulsification process. It also helps the emulsification become more stable because the ice melts and the water slowly emulsifies during the process, versus dumping all of the water in at one time and then emulsifying it together. The reason we're so concerned about temperature is that we want a stable emulsification, that way we're not leaching fat and water out of our chicken nuggets when we're trying to portion them. And we're using egg yolks as a binder because egg yolks contain less of them. They also add flavor, moisture, and help with the bite. That's why we use egg yolks instead of egg whites. Egg whites will be a little bit more rubbery, where egg yolks are a little bit more tender of a bite. While my chicken filling is emulsifying, I like to go ahead and make my wet batter. Once you're done mixing your batter, wrap it with plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator to cool. Once your chicken is done emulsifying, wrap it and put it in the refrigerator as well. And you want to allow the chicken to rest. After an hour, we can then portion our chicken out. You'll want to line your sheet tray with parchment paper. I like to use a portion scoop, portion the nuggets, and then press them out. Although if you don't want to take the time and you don't care what the shape they are, it's faster and easier just to press it into a sheet, and then you can cut them into whatever shape you want afterwards. If you choose to portion scoop out and press your nuggets with your hand, I suggest you do it with a gloved hand, and you use pan spray. Just very lightly hand spray your hand and then reapply as needed to keep the chicken filling from sticking your gloves as you press them out. You'll thank me later. Once you finish patting out your nuggets, cover them with parchment paper and place in the freezer to freeze. If your nuggets are slightly touching each other, don't worry about it, you can break them apart later. Once you have your frozen chicken nugget patties or whatever shape you decided, you're going to take those and toss them in potato starch. And just very lightly. You just need enough potato starch to have the batter adhere to the chicken. We're actually going to double batter these. So first, dip them in the wet batter, brush off the excess, and fry them in small batches, just until the batter is set, about 10 to 20 seconds. I try to keep the fryer between 325 degrees and 350 degrees during this process. Continue until you've coated them all in batter one time. Then we're going to repeat the process redipping them in the batter again. For the second batter, I actually like to add just a little bit of more water to thin it out and make the batter just a little bit thinner for the second coat. And that's going to be our crispy shell. And at this point, if you want to, you can add a couple ice cubes into the batter, be even colder. The cold will help it set crispier. Once they've been fried a second time, you then lay them out to cool and freeze them. From there, you can bag them up, and then you made your own frozen chicken nuggets. You can fry, bake, or put in an air fryer right from frozen.
You can just take them right out of the freezer after they're done. You can have fresh chicken nuggets
whenever you want them. I actually baked these in the oven if you're curious what they look like. And they were still beautifully crispy. They were just as good as fried. I hope you enjoyed this video and you make yourself a whole big old pile of chicken nuggets. Thank you so much. Follow for more. Can't forget the sauce.